All right, so I just want to come on here and give a little overview of Gorilla Technology before the upcoming week. It is a big week for Gorilla Technology. And I'm just going to go through, what to expect, what to look for, and if you're an investor, things to be excited about. So, I've made a couple of videos on Gorilla Technology at this point. It's one of my favorite stocks in the market. It's very, very small still. Not many people have discovered it. It's very cheap right now. So before I even start, I would recommend buying it. You can look at some of my other videos on more in-depth analysis of why I would buy it, especially right now. But I just wanted to come on here today to go over an overview of what's coming this week. And this is a huge week for Gorilla. And there's a couple of reasons for that. The first reason is that they will this week, I think it's Tuesday. I'm not sure if it's in the morning or afternoon. They'll be filing their 20F form. And if you're not aware of what that is, since Gorilla is a foreign company, they're headquartered out of the UK. They do most of their business outside of the US. They have to file a special form, which gives basically it's an official form to the SEC, and it gives like an official overview of their earnings, their official earnings, their projects, their partnerships, what they've been doing, what their company's all about. So, this is stuff that it's not going to be anything really new. Maybe a couple new things you're going to see in this form. But most of it's just like making everything official. And, Gorilla is big on, being transparent with their investors. They have emails they send out to investors, very regularly. The CEO is very transparent about what they do. They released their earnings recently, which were very strong. So, that's all things to be happy with Gorilla. But the only thing that they've been really facing recently that's been holding them back a good amount is the fact that the only thing really that is left for investors to be hesitant about is whether this is all real. Because if you just look at their company from, a baseline point of view, this company should be probably $70, $80 by now. The stock should be. I mean, I think it's valued at probably $100 right now, realistically, is what it really should be. Just based on their strong earnings and just where they could go in the future. I mean, it's still so small, $300 million market cap. It could easily be a billion-dollar company, in my opinion. And that could be right now. But the thing that's holding them back is just the fact that short sellers and investors are, saying, I'm not sure if this is all real because, they're doing such spectacular things in theory that, what makes me think this is real? Because there's a little bit of vague details in their partnerships and, people are questioning whether they're exaggerating their earnings. So basically the 20F will take care of most of that. It's an official report. You can't just doubt what they're sending to the SEC and what the SEC is approving. So once the SEC approves their 20F and once they send it in, most likely their stock price will rise. Obviously, I don't, I haven't been around enough to see these 20Fs because they're kind of rare because I don't invest in many foreign companies. So this is kind of the first foreign company I've been invested in. So I'm not really sure what exactly is going to happen. But in theory, the stock price should rise because the short sellers, which if you're tracking the stock price, again, it was consolidated on this 25 level and they released earnings here. It was at 29 when they released earnings and they were amazing. They were great earnings. I made a video before why you should buy then. If you bought then, I would definitely hold. But, they made great earnings, but it went down. And that's just because short sellers were coming out saying that their earnings were fraudulent. Their company was fraudulent. So that sent the price down from where it really should be, at least at 30, down to now we're hovering on the 16 levels. You see investors are kind of consolidating here because we're waiting for, more news that what they're doing is legit. And the 20F will hopefully take care of that. And you can hopefully see prices go back up to the 30 levels and hopefully maybe back to the 40 levels that we established in early March and maybe past that, because really that's where this company belongs. If you haven't looked at their earnings report yet, I'd highly suggest doing so because they're some of the best earnings I've seen out of a growing company. I mean, there are not many negatives. They reported, I think, a loss just because of some sort of currency problems, but they're still growing. Their revenues are up like crazy. So, that could easily send the stock price up, and that's Tuesday. And just another thing with Gorilla is that you've been seeing that with these, there hasn't been much news about Gorilla ever since the earnings. You've been seeing it's been following the overall market. The overall market has been also struggling a lot. It kind of bounced back in the last week, but it's been struggling a lot, and that's hard for Gorilla to overcome. Usually, it is resistant to those types of movements, but this time it wasn't, and it really tanked down with the market. So a big thing to watch too is what's going on with the overall market, or how is the tariff situation looking. I know Trump just made an amendment to his tariffs to exempt certain people or certain phones and electronics from the tariffs, and that's gonna most definitely send markets higher on Monday, at least for a good part of Monday. It's obviously very volatile, so you don't know what's going to happen the whole day, but that'll send markets higher, start. And hopefully these deals start rolling in. A deal with China is made soon. And that's also just going to send Gorilla higher because, I think we've established these levels at around $17. And, I don't think we're going to go much lower than this unless obviously there's a piece of bad news specific to Gorilla, or the market continues to crash like crazy. But, the combination of this 20F, which is going to send the stock probably higher, hopefully by a lot, and the overall market starting to maybe turn around, you could see Gorilla start to get much higher. Investors start to kind of realize that this stock is worth a lot more than it's currently valued at. So, this is something that I found online, and, obviously these are projections. Aside from 2025 is pretty accurate, or at least it will be. But, this is a growing company. I just want to remind you guys of this. These are their revenue predictions. You see they're going to grow, and that is expected. And by 2030, this smart city stuff is legit, and it'll probably accelerate them to these revenues, 708 million, 700 million, to probably $1 billion soon. And that's not that crazy, but that's a lot of growth because they're just starting out. And based on a price to earnings, this is a very conservative price to earnings of 20 for a tech stock that's very low. You see this stock could easily go up to $200. This is obviously a little whiles away, but right now, probably worth $40 at least, and that's a conservative price to earnings. So this just kind of is, if you're an investor, kind of maybe a little nervous about the stock price going down, just to stay calm. I'm an investor as well, and I'm staying calm because I know that the share price is not reflective of what the company is really worth. And this stuff happens with companies like Gorilla, and small growing companies. It happens to every company, whether it's Amazon in its early stages or Apple in its early stages. They're growing, so they have these tough phases where these short sellers are manipulating the market and manipulating the stock. And this won't last forever. It won't last hopefully very long. Hopefully this 20F will solve it. But this is also something to keep in mind, is just this graphic here that I found, is that when you look at a stock, you want to see is the business broken too. Like you say a stock is down 30% and however long, is the business also breaking down with it? And there are some stocks like that where the revenues are falling, as you can see here, and the stock is falling with it. And those stocks usually stay away from. Maybe you want to bank on it bouncing back, but that's not very likely, and those aren't really smart investments to make. Gorilla is the opposite case. Their revenues were announced as an increase. And they're predicted to continue increasing through 2025 and 2026, but their stock's going down. And why is that? That's the short selling. That's the idea of that there's fraud in Gorilla, and that's sending the stock lower. So, that's a great company to invest in. But at the end of the day, you have to just look at yourself. And I've already had this conversation with myself. Do you really think that Gorilla is a fraudulent company? And that's what these short sellers are saying. That's really the only thing. Maybe a little bit of just the overall market sentiment, but that's a huge reason why Gorilla is not doing as well as it probably should be right now, is that these short sellers are saying that that Gorilla is fraudulent. And you just have to say, do I really think it's fraudulent? Do I think they're making every single part of this up, their revenues, their partnerships, their deals? Or, do I think that they're legit? Maybe there's a little bit of lack of details that they could be more clear about, but everything's legit. And, I think that I'm still very confident, and there's nothing that Gorilla has done or said or shown me so far that would make me think that they're fraudulent. So, you have to have that conversation with yourself as an investor. And if you think they're fraudulent, just stay away from it. It's not that difficult. But most likely, and I strongly believe this, they're just a growing company that is still very small. So these short sellers look at it and realize that it's very easy to take advantage of and manipulate. So they make these articles, and it's these fraudulent short sellers who are, unknown and anonymous. So really, it's you just have to start realizing that it's those fraudulent short sellers that are really sending this price down, and that Gorilla belongs much, much higher. So hopefully we'll see Gorilla go back up to where it belongs Tuesday, and hopefully the overall market continues to bounce back, so we can see that also accelerate Gorilla's growth. So this is a very important week for Gorilla. If Gorilla isn't up after the end of this week, then that would be very disappointing, and we maybe have to see other reasons why it's not up after the 20th is filed. If these short sellers are really continuing to make a mark on the stock price. So let me know what you think. Hoping for the best this week, and yeah, let me know what you think in the comments. And yeah, thanks for watching.